Not all summer knitting is easy knitting. In fact, some of the most popular summer tops are more challenging to knit than they look in the pictures. So today I'm ranking 16 summer top patterns from easy to advanced, including one that just came out and that I got an exclusive look at before its release. I'm going to tell you exactly what makes each of these patterns more or less challenging so that you can make the right choice for where you are at in your knitting journey. Let's get started. Easy. Let's start with the easiest pattern on the list, and it is the Sabai top by Susanne Müller. And I genuinely think that this would make a perfect first garment project. It is worked seamlessly from the top down. You start with a neckline in the round, then shape the slanted shoulders with simple increases, and from there the front and back are worked separately for the armholes before being joined back in the round for the body. There are two versions available, one with ribbed borders and one entirely in stockinette stitch, so you can choose your level of complexity even within this one pattern. And since the top is sleeveless, it knits up quickly and you can try it on as you go. The techniques involved are really just increases and working back and forth, so knitting and purling. All you have to do is maintain an even tension, and I think this is a very approachable, confidence-building beginner garment. The next pattern I would like to talk about is the Anchor Tee by Petite Knit, and I have made this one myself, and this is my version here. This piece is knitted from the top down and starts with ribbing all throughout the yoke and then transitions into stockinette stitch for the rest of the body, and it does not include any short row shaping, which makes things a bit easier. What does matter here is fit, because the Anchor Tee is designed with zero positive ease, so choosing the right size is important. There are also two versions available, the original Anchor Tee in fingering weight and the Anchor's summer shirt in DK weight, which knits up even faster. I think overall this is a very thoughtful and polished construction that shows you how simple a beginner summer knitting pattern can be, while also looking very beautiful once you wear it. Next up we have the Tolster Tee by Rebecca Clow, and this is Rebecca's take on the perfect basic raglan t-shirt. It is worked from the top down with a straightforward raglan construction available in both DK and fingering weight within the one pattern, and it also comes with short and long sleeve options. What I really like about this pattern is that Rebecca has included extensive customization guidance, so once you've knitted it once, you can make it entirely your own. There is also optional bust shaping built in, which is a really thoughtful inclusion, in my opinion. But at its core, this is a simple top-down raglan t-shirt that any beginner can cast on with confidence, and I think this is a great canvas pattern to entirely make your own. Next, we have the Mixed Rib Cami by Florence Miller. And this is an interesting stitch pattern because it combines wide and twisted rib all throughout the camisole. It is knitted from the top down, first worked flat and then joined in the round, and the edges are finished with I-cord, which adds a clean and polished look. The I-cord finishing is a small additional step compared to the other patterns in this section, which is why it sits a little higher on the difficulty scale. But I think it's still a very approachable project. The pattern also comes with optional waist shaping if you want to make the tee or the top a little bit more fitted. And Florence Miller is known for writing incredibly clear pattern instructions, so I would assume this is going to be a very enjoyable knit. The Mia Summer Tee by Cherry Mokhtari, also known as Coco Amour, is a pattern that I think rounds out this beginner section beautifully. You might have heard me talk about Cherry Mokhtari before. I featured her Audrey jacket in my cardigan ranking video. and she is also known for writing very clear and easy to follow patterns that are also enjoyable to knit. So I think the Mia Summer Tee would be a great choice for a beginner knitter as well. It is a classic top-down raglan tee with twisted rib edges throughout. The neck is shaped with short rows as part of the yoke, which is a small additional step compared to the earlier patterns in this section, but nothing that should feel out of reach for a confident beginner. And after the yoke, the body and sleeves are divided and worked separately in the round. And I also really like the added detail of the broken rib on the sleeves. I think this adds a beautiful touch to the otherwise very simple tee. The suggested yarns are Knitting for Olive Pure Silk held together with their compatible cashmere. And I do have to add that both of these yarns have less elasticity than a wool yarn, so this combination requires an even tension all throughout. But overall, I would say this is still a very approachable and lovely tee to knit. Now, the next patterns that I'm going to show you are still approachable, but they do ask just a little bit more of you. Intermediate. The Sea Glass by Wool and Pine is actually part of a whole series of patterns and is very popular. And I've actually knitted the children's version for both of my daughters. So this is the Sea Glass Mini, one of them that I made. And similar to the adult version, it is knitted from the top down with an all-over colorwork pattern, a 1x1 colorwork, and you alternate the colors every stitch, and one or two of the colors also every row, so that you get a lovely and blended look. And this is also a great pattern if you want to use up some leftovers. The stitch pattern itself is not difficult, but managing two yarns simultaneously, planning your color palette and keeping your attention consistent does require more focus than a plain stockinette knit. And the pattern includes video tutorials to make it more manageable to knit if you are more of a beginner knitter. And I would say this sits at the more accessible end of the intermediate section. The technique is simple, but colorwork in general is not the easiest thing to knit. Next up we have the Night Sky by Heidi Kiermeier, and this is one of my personal favorite patterns on the entire list. In fact, I've made it myself and I am also wearing it today. About the construction, the Night Sky is knitted from the bottom up, and this is worth noting because generally speaking, if you are knitting a piece bottom up compared to top down, it is a little bit more difficult to try it on as you go and see if you are happy with the fit or if you need to make some modifications. And in addition, this top also features this beautiful lace detail on both sleeves and also on the bottom hem. Short rows are worked at the back neck, and otherwise the piece is knitted entirely in the round. The recommended yarn is a sport weight linen silk blend, which is beautiful but less forgiving than wool because it has very little elasticity, so evenness in your stitching really shows. The construction itself is not overly complex, but the combination of bottom up, short rows, lace and the yarn fiber is what moves this into intermediate territory. The Fabienne Tee by Lene Holme Samsø is a pattern I have been wanting to knit myself for a long time, and I even already have the yarn for it, so I actually hope to be able to cast it on very soon. And this is the yarn that I am planning to use. This is Pinta by Pasquali, and the colorway that I have is Sage. I recently finished knitting a cardigan with this exact yarn, and I'm planning to knit the Fabienne Tee to wear it as a twin set together with my cardigan. Let's hope that I'll be able to cast this on very soon. The tee is knitted top down with slanted shoulders, and the construction has some nuance to it. The back is worked first, then the front shoulders are picked up and worked separately with short rows for the shoulder shaping before everything is joined and continued in the round. What pushed this into intermediate territory for me is the gauge. It's knitted at 28 stitches and 40 rows per 10 centimeters on 3mm needles, which corresponds to a US 2.5, and that's quite fine. And the suggested yarn is Knitting for Olive Pure Silk. That's a 100% silk yarn with almost no elasticity. It is a beautiful pattern for sure, but one that requires patience and an even tension. And in addition, what I also wanted to mention is that it comes with 3 different options for the hem, which I think is a lovely detail. Next, we have the short tee by the Danish designer Anne Wenzel, and this is one that I have been wanting to knit for a long time. I think it is very elegant and feminine with these beautiful simple lace panels running all throughout the top, and I can happily say that I finally managed to cast it on. And this is my version here. As you can see, I am almost done with the first sleeve, and then all that's left to do is knit the second sleeve. The yarn that I am using is a 100% cotton yarn by DMC. It is called Baby Cotton, and I'm not sure about the colorway name, but I'm going to link it in the description box below for you, along with everything else that I'm mentioning in this video. The tee is knitted from the top down, but with a construction that is a bit less linear than a simple raglan. The yoke is first worked in the round and then divided so that the front and back are worked flat separately down to the armholes. The back section is deliberately worked a little longer than the front to push the shoulder line forward, which creates a better fit, but it also means you need to follow the pattern carefully. The sleeves are picked up from the armholes and shaped with short rows at the cap before being worked in the round, and the edges are finished with twisted rib. There are several things to manage in this pattern. You have the lace, you have the construction shifts, and also the short row sleeve caps, but overall the pattern is written very clearly, and I think the end result is absolutely stunning. Now, the next pattern I would like to talk about is called Diana Tee, and it is a pattern by Claudia Quintanilla from Unit Toronto, and I was lucky enough to get an exclusive look at it before it came out. Now, at the time of this recording, the pattern is not released yet, but it should be published at the time that you are watching this video, so of course I'm also going to link that for you down below. The Diana tee is knitted with a strand of a lace weight merino held together with a strand of a silk mohair, and it features contiguous sleeves. Mohair is a beautiful but a bit more unforgiving yarn to work with, because if you make a mistake, it's not easy to frog and inconsistencies in your tension will show. And while contiguous sleeves are not difficult to knit, they can be a little confusing the first time due to their more unusual construction. They are a way to seamlessly create a set-in sleeve look without the need for sewing seams later. And the construction starts by working on the shoulders before the sleeve cap really takes shape, and that can be a bit confusing initially. It's also knitted at a fine gauge of 26 stitches and 36 rows over 10 centimeters or 4 inches. So all of these things combined are what pushed the Diana tee into the intermediate category. And let's move on to the more advanced patterns now. They are all absolutely stunning, but a bit more challenging to knit. Advanced. We are going to start with the Eldora tee, which is a design by the Norwegian designer Morlin Borgersen, and I think this is an absolutely stunning and very unique pattern. The Eldora tee features lace throughout the yoke and a crocheted edge finish, which already adds some complexity. And the construction starts with the back piece, then the front is picked up and worked before everything is joined in the round. The pattern is available with both charted and written instructions, and it also includes a video tutorial, which is always helpful. But the fine gauge of 24 stitches over 10 centimeters or 4 inches on 3mm needles that corresponds to a US 2.5, combined with the lace, the unconventional construction, and the crochet finishing, makes this a project that I think genuinely requires a bit more experience. It is a very beautiful pattern, but also one that definitely requires some attention. Let's move on to a pattern that I also have a personal relationship with, and it is Yoni by Natasha Hornby. Now, I started knitting this beautiful pattern back in summer of 2024, and I had to frog it because my gauge was completely off, and I also had made several mistakes in the beautiful lace section, so I decided to stop the project, frog the yarn and reknit it sometime in the future. And I really hope I'll be able to pick it back up this year, because honestly I think this is one of the most beautiful patterns I have ever seen. Yoni is a modern interpretation of a vintage lace blouse, and the construction is rather unusual. You begin by casting on the back shoulders and shape them with short rows. The shoulders are then joined and the back is worked flat until the underarm. The front shoulders are picked up separately and worked individually before the front neck stitches are cast on. And the front is worked flat until the same length as the back. Then everything is joined in the round for the body, which is finished with a beautiful rounded hem that's shaped with short rows, and there's also this stunning lace panel on the front. Now there are several moving parts here, and the unusual construction requires you to pay close attention to the pattern and also to trust the process. But I think if you have knitted a couple of garments before, it's very approachable, and I think the end result is so stunning and definitely worth it. Next up we have the dainty, and this is also a pattern I have been dreaming about knitting myself. I really like the lace on the sleeves, the scoop neckline, and there are several beautiful finishing techniques that I think make it just a special piece. You have folded cuffs, a folded hemline that is attached by crocheting it on, and also a beautiful detail on the neckline. The construction is worked top down seamlessly, and it knits up similar to a raglan, but with a silhouette that's closer to a saddle set-in sleeve. You start by shaping the shoulders with increases, then shape the sleeves, body and neckline. The sleeve stitches are placed on hold while the body is finished, and then picked up again and continued in this beautiful lace pattern. Pattern comes with both charted and written instructions, optional bust short rows with multiple dart options per size, and illustrated construction notes. But there's also a lot going on in this design, and the lace sleeves in particular require consistent attention. Next we have the Fleur Tee by Brianna Mason, and this is another beautiful pattern, but one that combines various techniques that stack up on the difficulty scale. The entirety is worked in an all-over pointelle lace pattern, not just in a panel or on the yoke, but throughout the whole garment. And it's worked bottom up in the round to the underarms, then split and worked flat for the front and back separately. And here's what really sets it apart from other advanced patterns on this list. The shoulders are seamed. Because in an era of almost entirely seamless garment knitting, seaming is a technique that many knitters have simply never practiced, although I don't think it is particularly hard, just unusual nowadays. The pattern also requires a tubular cast on, a tubular bind off, German short rows, and picking up stitches around the armholes. The designer herself describes this pattern as one that requires intermediate to advanced garment making knowledge, and I would definitely agree, but I also want to add that I think this is an absolutely beautiful pattern. Next we have the Petite Pointelle Tank by Jessie Made Designs, which is a beautiful dainty tank top with this pointelle lace, scalloped edges and double knit finishes. It's worked from the top down, starting at the back neck. The techniques required include lace knitting, cable knitting, increasing, decreasing, and working from a chart, both flat and in the round. And the swatch is worked in the lace pattern rather than stockinette, which just means your swatch is a bit more involved than usual. All of these elements are definitely manageable for a more experienced knitter, but they simply require a bit more focus and care. So I think this is really a pattern you sit down with and focus completely on it, and it's nothing that you do while you're half watching TV. Now I have saved the most demanding pattern on the list for last, and if you see it, I think you are going to understand why. Very advanced. The Rosenlund top by the Finnish designer Sari Nordlund has got a category of its own, and I want to be honest, this is not a pattern that I would recommend to anyone who has not knitted a couple of garments before. It is knitted seamlessly from the top down and combines 3 distinct stitch patterns within the same garment. You have honeycomb cables, a lace pattern and a textural moss stitch. And these are worked not in separate sections because they run simultaneously through the body of the top, which means you need to hold multiple stitch pattern repeats in your head at once or follow the chart extremely careful at all times. The construction also shifts between flat and circular knitting. The back and front are worked flat down to the armholes, then joined, and the body continues in the round. And after finishing the body, stitches are picked up around the neck and worked in the round. And then the stitches are picked up around both armholes for the sleeve edgings, which are also worked in the round. There's a lot of picking up and there's a lot of switching between flat and circular. Sari Nordland has charted and written out each of these techniques in the pattern, which is of course very helpful. And I think if you are in the right mind space for a more elaborate knit and if you have the experience, you should definitely go for it, because I think this is one of the most beautiful patterns I've ever seen. Now, none of this is meant to tell you what you should or shouldn't knit. If you are more of a beginner knitter and the Rosenlund top is calling your name, I would say challenge yourself and go for it. But what I hope this guide does is help you choose the project that feels right for where you are at right now, so that your summer knitting feels enjoyable rather than frustrating. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, I have a whole playlist of videos where I am ranking different patterns with their difficulty scale, and I'm going to link it for you on the screen. And I'll see you next time. Happy knitting. Take care. Bye.